Hi everyone, it's Jennifer from Fiberflux. In this video, I will show you how to crochet the Sorbetto baby blanket and playmat. Makes a really nice gift for a baby. It makes a cozy blanket at first when they're little, and then when they get a little bit bigger, they can use it as a playmat, and it's extra squishy and soft, so it makes a nice padded playmat. For this project, I used 6 skeins of the Lion brand Hometown yarn. I used 2 skeins of this color, which is called Honolulu Pink. I used 2 skeins of this color, which is called Monterey Lime. And I used 2 skeins of this color, which is called Minneapolis Purple. However, you can use any color you want. You can make yours solid. You can make yours more than 3 colors, less than 3. And I worked 3 rows of each color before switching. So I did 3 rows of purple, then I switched 3 rows of green, and so forth. You'll also need an N 9mm crochet hook, and you'll need a pair of scissors and a tapestry needle to weave in your ends at the end, and to also sew your flower and leaf to the blanket if you choose to do that. So let's begin. The finished blanket measured 30 inches wide and 30 inches tall. However, you can make your blanket any width or height that you like. And this is worked in a multiple of 6 plus 4, meaning however wide you like it to be, do 6 plus 6 plus 6 plus 6 plus 6 to get your width, and then just add 4 onto that. So you can make it any width you'd like, and then the height of the blanket is worked by simply working as many rows as you'd like. So you could really make this a huge Afghan, a tiny baby blanket, and anything in between. So to begin, we're going to start with the purple. And again, you can use any color combination you like. You can start with any color you'd like as well. So we're going to take our hook. We'll get our yarn ball over here. I just have a little bit left here, just some scraps I had on hand that I'll be using. But this, the dimensions, I use 6 skeins of yarn. So to begin, we're going to chain 76. So to begin, we'll put a slip knot on our hook, wrap a loop around your fingers, bring the yarn behind the loop, reach in with your crochet hook, bring up the loop, and tighten it onto your hook. To make a chain, we're going to wrap yarn around hook and pull it through the loop, just like that. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 76. So this is our starting chain. This is what it'll look like. So let's begin row 1. We're going to work our first fan in this 6th chain from the hook. This loop here does not count. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So in this chain here, we're going to work our first fan by working 2 double crochets, a chain 3, and 2 double crochets, all in the same chain. To work a double crochet, wrap yarn around hook, insert your hook into the chain, bring up a loop, wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the first 2 loops, wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the last 2 loops. That's the double crochet. We're going to work another double crochet into the chain. We're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3, and then work 2 more double crochets. And again, this is all in the same chain. And it'll look just like that. Okay, so next we're going to skip 5 chains, and I'll just get a little more yarn here. Because we're using a large hook, this uses lots of yarn very quickly. So we're going to skip 5 chains, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and in that next chain, we're going to do the same thing. 2 double crochets, chain 3, 2 double crochets. So that's 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets, chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and 2 double crochets, all in the same chain. Okay, so we're just going to keep repeating this sequence all the way across till we get to the end. Skip 5 chains, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and in that 6th chain, or the next chain after, we're going to do the same thing. 2 double crochets, yarn splitting, there we go. 2 double crochets, chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and 2 double crochets, all in the same chain. So our blanket looks like this so far, starting to look a little bit like it. Okay, we're going to skip 5 chains, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and in the chain after that, 2 double crochets, chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and 2 more double crochets, all in the same chain. Okay, so we're just going to keep repeating this all the way across for the remainder of our starting chain. So you're going to continue to the end of the row until you only have 4 chains left. So here's what row 1 looks like. We finished row 1. It's very, very quick to go through all these rows. So at the end, we're just going, in the very last chain, we're just going to work a double crochet. Just like that in the very last chain to finish off the row. Okay, so it'll look kind of like that when we're finished. So row 1 is complete. Now, to go into row 2, you're going to chain 3 and turn. But before we do that, I want to show you how to switch colors. In the original written pattern, which is found on the Fiberflex blog, and it's printable, what I did was I worked 3 rows of each color before switching. But I'm going to show you on the next row, just because we're doing a little sampler of this blanket. So let's grab our green. And I'm going to show you 2 ways to switch color. You can do this either way you prefer. The first way you can do it is, let me take the hook out, and we'll pull this double crochet out. So let's say we're coming to the end of our row, and in this last chain here, we're going to work our double crochet. So you're just going to work it as usual. Now when you get to this point, and you have 2 loops left on your hook, you're going to take your other color, and you're just going to give yourself a little bit of a tail here, and you're going to place it over your hook. And then you're going to take your other strand and just kind of hold it down here, and you're going to complete the stitch using the new yarn. So pull that through, and then take your working strand, and you can kind of tighten everything down here. Just see how I tightened it and it kind of pulled that loop down. You can kind of tighten these loops as well. So take your working yarn, And see, now I have a green loop and a purple loop on my hook, and we're just going to complete the stitch as normal. And see how we've joined the green yarn onto the purple yarn. That's one way you can do it. Then you can just simply chain 3, 2, 3, turn your work, and then begin on row 2. There's another way to do it, and I wanted to show you this way first because the other method involves cutting the yarn. So let's pull out our double crochet again. We're going to act like we're coming up to the end of the row here again. So the next method you can, and again, either way you would like to do it is fine. So let's work our double crochet. This time we're going to finish the stitch. We're going to work the entire double crochet in purple. Now we have one loop left on our hook. This method you can just fasten off. If you need, I have just this much yarn left, but if you need to cut your yarn, do that at this point. And then this last loop here on our row, you can grab, I have a lot of yarn tails now. Oh, here it is. Okay, so you can grab your green and just put it on your hook the same way we did before. I'm sorry, run it through this loop here at the end and then put it on your hook. Now pull it through, and then you can just kind of tie it on. Some people don't like to do this because it makes a little knot. I tend to over tie things because I'm so afraid something's going to come apart, but you know, it's personal preference. So now your new yarn is simply just tied on. And some people like this technique, and look, we have 2 tails here. Some people like this technique, some people are not into it at all. It's totally up to you, either method you prefer. But I wanted to show you the other method first because this one involves tying and cutting and things like that. So then you can insert your hook back into this loop, bring up a loop just like that, and then you can work your chain 3, 1, 2, 3, turn your work and keep going. At this point you can either, go ahead and turn our work. At this point you can either take these tails that you've tied on and you can kind of weave them in as you go along by holding them kind of on the top ridge, or later you can just weave your ends in. I know lots of people are not into weaving their ends in. I personally don't mind it. I feel like I have more control over the ends when I weave them in. However, you can weave them in as you go along, like I said, or you can just leave these kind of hanging here and deal with them later. It's totally up to you. So let's go on to row 2. So we worked a chain 3 and we turned our work. So now our work is facing this way. And I'm just going to forget about these ends for now because this is just our sampler blanket. So each fan is made by 2 double crochets, a chain 3, which forms this little arc, and then 2 more double crochets. So the next fan, these fans are stacked. We're going to work each fan into the center of the fan from the previous row. So we're going to do that by working 2 double crochets, chain 3, 2 double crochets, the same way we did in the previous row. So go ahead and work 2 double crochets, chain 3, 1, 2, 3, 2 double crochets, 1 and 2. So it's going to kind of look like this, how those V's or fans, I guess you could call them double V's or fans, are stacked. Let's move on to the next one. We're going to do the same thing into the center of this fan as well. 2 double crochets, chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then 2 double crochets all into the center of the fan. So it's going to look like this so far. Okay, so we're going to do that in the center of each fan all the way across. Okay? So here we are at the last fan of our second row. We're just doing 2 double crochets, chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and 2 double crochets, okay. Move my diminishing yarn ball here out of the way. And then to finish off row 2, we're just going to work 1 double crochet into this turning chain space. When I say that, it's this large hole made by the turning chain from the previous row. We're just going to work a double crochet right into the turning chain space, just like that. So row 2 is complete. It'll look kind of like that. And then at this point, you can switch colors again, or you can work your green for a few more rows. It's totally up to you. And to make your blanket taller, you'll just keep working row 2 until your blanket is as large as you would like it to be. So when you're finished, you can just fasten off. You can weave in any ends that remain. And at this point, I'll show you how to do the optional flower and leaf. And we're going to chain 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4. In the farthest chain from our hook, we're going to join with a slip stitch, insert the hook into the chain, bring up a loop, bring this loop through this loop, slip stitch. We're going to open up this ring, and then in the center of the ring, we're going to work 6 double crochets, one, two, and I'm just pushing these aside as I make them, because there's lots of stitches going into this ring. 3, 4, 5, and 6. Oops, let me redo this stitch. The plies came apart a little bit. There we go. Okay, and 6. Okay, so this is the bottom of our leaf. That's what it's going to look like. Okay, so next let's work the side of our leaf by working 4 single crochets. To make a single crochet, just insert your hook into the center, bring up a loop, yarn around hook, bring it through both loops. That's 1, 2, 3, and 4. To make the top point of our leaf, we're going to work a treble crochet. To make a treble crochet, wrap yarn around hook twice, insert it into the ring, bring up a loop, yarn around hook, bring it through the first 2 loops, yarn around hook, bring it through the next 2 loops, yarn around hook, bring it through the last 2 loops. So it's starting to look more leaf-like. Then to finish up the side, we're going to work 4 more single crochets. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then we're going to join with a slip stitch to close our leaf. Okay, then you can take your scissors. There we go. Yarn's a little thick for those scissors, but that's okay. And we're going to just fasten it off, just like that. And then because it's a one round leaf, you can just kind of shape it up a little bit. I also have another video for a 1 round stemless leaf on the Fiberflux YouTube channel as well. We're going to flip our leaf over and pull this, and if you hold this tail along while you're working into the ring, it'll weave that in as you go along. So then we can trim this off, and I'm going to leave this on so we can sew it to our blanket, so don't weave this side one in yet. So let's put this aside. Now we're going to make our flower, our rose. So let's grab our pink yarn, and to make the rose we're going to chain 12. So put a slip knot on your hook and chain 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So here's our little beginnings of our rose. Next, in the 4th chain from the hook, this loop here again does not count. 1, 2, 3, 4. This chain here, we're going to work 2 double crochets. 1 and 2. Next, in each chain across here, all the way across, we're going to work 3 double crochets in each chain, all the way across. 1, 2, 3, all in the same chain. 1, our yarn ball sneaking over there. 2, 3, next chain. 1, 2, 3, and again this rose and leaf is completely optional, but not only is it decorative and pretty to stick one on there, but it's also, when it becomes a play mat, it's also a fun little tactile thing for the baby to play with and inspect and check out as they're playing on the mat. So it's attractive and functional as well, I guess you could say. So we're still working 3 double crochets in each chain all the way across. And I wanted to just take a little pause here, and you can see the rose is already curling. It kind of just curls all by itself. No effort required. Okay, we're coming up to the end. We're almost finished. And if you are making this for a gift for a baby, including your own baby, you can make one of these relatively quickly. It's a pretty fast blanket project. If you need a last-minute shower gift, it's kind of funny to think of an Afghan as being a last-minute gift, but I was able to make mine in about 2 evenings, so don't hold me to that, but you can make one pretty quickly, I will say. Okay, So 3 in that one, and then here's the very last chain. We'll work 3 double crochets. Let me get my yarn here. There we go. Okay. 1, 2, and 3. So let's take our scissors, and again, this kind of rolled up all by itself naturally. We can break the yarn, and I'm leaving a little bit more of a tail than I normally do, and that's because we're going to use these tails to seam the flower together, but also stitch it onto the blanket. So I'm just going to fasten off here with my hook. Tighten that on there. So we have our rose and our leaf. Let's put this rose together before we stitch it onto the blanket. You're going to have 2 tails like this. I take this outermost tail. I don't want my rose petal or edge to have that point on there. So I usually take, when I make roses, I take care of that first. So we're going to coil it up, get it how you want it to look. Okay, then we're going to take that and we're going to just come in from the middle bottom, from back to front. And it's really important when you're making these little roses just to use, and we're going to go back in, just to use a few well-placed stitches. If you have too many stitches, it'll look overworked and it'll flatten out. If you don't have enough stitches, the rose will not be held together properly and it'll look sloppy and kind of flop around. So you want to try and strike a nice balance between not too many stitches and not enough stitches. So I've just put a few, as I've been talking here, I've just put a few stitches working from back to front. Get through there. There we go. Okay? So you can kind of shape it up a little and then flip it over, and then we're just going to tie it shut. I'm just going to do 3 knots. Again, I over knot. I'm afraid of it falling apart. So I just tied the back. Okay, so I have some tails here and I still have my tail here. We're going to use these to sew it onto the blanket. So let's come back to our blanket swatch. This is just, let me trim these off. This is just our little sampler like we were working on, that we were working on before, I should say. So when I made my blanket, this is just a little smidgen of blanket here, but when I made my blanket, I chose to sew the rose in the bottom right hand corner. You can sew your rose wherever you like. You can put a bunch of them across the bottom or the side, or you can cover it in roses. It's totally up to you. It's your lovely blanket. Let's do the leaf first. What I would recommend is to kind of lay your leaf where you'd like it to go. Obviously your blanket will be much bigger, but lay your leaf where you would like it to be, and then place your rose where you would like that to be. So kind of get an idea. So then leave your leaf there, and then give this end a fresh cut so you can thread it easier. Then you can thread it onto your tapestry needle. And again, we didn't cut the tails or weave them in so we could sew them on. So once you figure out where you want your leaf to be, you're just going to go in and just stitch it right on to the blanket. I'm just sewing all along the bottom edge here. And the rose is going to hide all this. See, it's going to hide all that. So you want to make sure that you sew this on really, really well so that a young child or baby does not pull this off either. So I just went all along the bottom here, and then I put one little stitch kind of towards the middle, but not the middle, just like that, just to hold it in place. I like to leave some of my leaf movable, I guess you could say. It makes it a little bit more dimensional. So then you can just kind of come in under one of these loops like this, and then run your needle through that loop, whoops, and make a little knot, and just knot it off like that. Very securely. Keep in mind, you want this to be very, very secure. Then you're going to take your rows. You're going to figure out where you want your rows to be. And again, let's give this a fresh cut. Thread our tapestry needle. Place the rows where you'd like it to go. We're going to be using both of these tails. I would like it to go right here. So I'm going to come in like this, down the middle, and then you're going to be going through lots of layers here. So you're going to take your needle, come up through these layers, and come back through. And you can kind of do like a little lift test to see how well that's holding as you go along. So just go all around. See how I have to wiggle it a little bit. It's very thick. You're going through the blanket, the leaf, and the rose. Okay, so once you've done that a few times, you can also take your other tail and stitch it on there as well. Just go through all those layers. I'm doing a kind of a quickie job on mine, but you want to take your time on this part, get that rose nice and secure. And then once you're finished, you can tie that on there nice and securely. And then all these tails, I'll just do one of them to show you, but all these tails here, you're going to want to weave in. You're going to want to have a nice clean backing. Just come in and do another pass. There we go. Lots of layers, okay? And then you can just trim that tail off. And you'll do the same for all the ends that remain. And then when you're finished, if you left your tails on there, I cut these so it wouldn't be as sloppy looking as I was trying to show you this. However, you can go in and I just want to say, when you weave in your ends from your blanket, weave the green into the green section. Weave the purple into the purple section, and so forth. You can just come in here, weave those ends in, just like that. Trim those off. And depending on if you decided to weave your ends in as you went along or save them to the end, will determine how many ends you'll have to do at this point. So here's our little sampler of the Sorbetto blanket. We've made our blanket section, a small little blanket section. We've made our leaf, our rose, and we've attached everything together and woven in most of the ends. Obviously, you'll want to weave in all of your ends. So that is how you crochet the Sorbetto blanket. Thanks so much for watching, and be sure and click the red subscribe button to get all the latest Fiber Flux video updates. Thanks again!